Season's greetings, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm president of the Montessori Foundation, and this is one of our weekly webcasts on Montessori school leadership. Finding the Perfect Match, which is part of this series, is a weekly webcast that we run throughout the school year on Montessori school admissions, marketing, recruitment, building community, and it is intended to be not a lecture, but a conversation among people who are actively involved as school leaders, as admissions directors, as assistant heads of schools, as owners, whatever. Anyone at all who cares about the issue of building a sustainable, successful, happy school. I do this every week with two of my colleagues. Renee Farkas is a member of the senior consulting team of the Montessori Foundation, which works with not only Montessori schools, but all kinds of schools, public, private, charter, Montessori, non-Montessori, and with my friend Clint Lausch, who is the head of AIMS, and Clint worked for many years with Independent School Management, a group that you may all know and love. I certainly worked with him for decades and think highly of them. He, like me, went out on his own and is developing this particular company. And I think very highly of Clint and the work that he's doing. And I'm really, really proud to do this with his collaboration. So, Clint, let me hand over to you to see if there's anything you want to say to get us started.
No, I think a lot of folks saw that. I appreciate the intro as well, Tim. And yeah, looking forward to continuing these sessions as we go into the holidays here. And I guess just let everybody know that we have this week, obviously next week, and then we're going to be taking a break for the holidays, coming back in January. So just to give everybody a heads up there. And as many of you saw in the email coming to today's session, we talk a lot about prospective family marketing, how to find the right fit, messaging, advertising, right? And one of the topics that should get a lot of attention, because this is the prime time to talk about it are retention strategies. And that's why we're really happy to have Renee on here with us today talking about some strategies. And again, would love to collaborate with everybody here. What are some of the things that you're doing at your school to boost retention and building great relationships with your existing parents? So with that being said, Renee, I would love to kind of turn it over to you to kind of kick us off with just talking about what do we need to know? What are some things that you have top of mind that you're seeing with schools when it comes to the big concept of retention, which is so important to healthy enrollment, that even though we talk so much about prospective family marketing, if you have great retention, it takes a lot of that pressure off of trying to go out and finding new families as well. So Renee, I'll let you now. I'll tag you're in. You're in, and
sure. Retention. Thanks, Clint and Tim, and welcome everybody. And yeah, I think I've talked a little bit about this before, because my strategies on retention, my number one focus is the partnership with parents, but I'm not going to quite go there yet. I first want to just give you a few comments. I don't know if any of you have seen the article in NAIS Independent School Winter 23. I just thought I could paste it in here, and I can't find a paste button, but it was an article put together by NAIS, EMA, and NBOA. So you're all familiar with those alphabets, right? And yeah. And they were studying the cost per enrollment per student. And that's why I believe in how important it is to focus on retention. And I think when the admissions offices kind of changed their names to enrollment management office or enrollment managed officer, what I recall was that's when we had kind of a shift where we started paying more attention to retention than just new admissions, right? And so today I'd love to get a conversation going about any intentional programming that you may have going on in your school that's totally focused on trying to connect with families, keep them happy, keep them retained, right? It's a pretty simple formula. But so one of the interesting things on this article is that they actually did an analysis of what it costs to replace a student. And the cost is actually lower than what I thought. But they said that And in elementary school, it cost about $3,677 to recruit a new student. And in high school, it cost about $5,844. So those are just some numbers that are interesting, that for every student we lose, we're losing tuition, plus we're losing the cost it's going to cost us to recruit that person, right? And that's not to talk about the other, time, effort, other variable costs that get involved when we're losing a student. And I know, particularly for Montessori schools, maybe it's as true in independence, but there's a ton of cost in the emotional costs that we have when we lose a child, right? I mean, in my school, we literally, I've had teachers cry when they find out a family's leaving, right? So, when you think about all that, there's just so much involved. And for me, I think that it's really important for all of us to take a look at our school, the people in it, and the people that we're, serving, the families, and look at what is their experience and what are we doing to retain them, right? It's not just in March when we say, oh no, they're not enrolling their contract, what happened? So one strategy, and then I'll look for some comments. One strategy that I've seen in the last couple of years is schools putting together retention committees. And they have both administrators and teachers on it. And basically the duty is anything you hear, bring it to the committee and we'll figure out an action plan about, you might hear that a little third grader said, oh, I was visiting Windsor School last week. Well, that's a clue, right? And then we would certainly jump in and, in a nice way, call the family and say, we heard this, we wondered what's leading to that possible action, and many times you can find things that you didn't really see on the surface. And maybe there's time to remedy that. At least there is a time to partner with that family and review the values of your school. So one of the strategy that we used at Kingsley that I think was one of our leading ones, and it's really about, I looked at retention from the first day of school for the new families particularly, and then for the regular families, people who have already been renewing over and over, you can't ignore them as well. You've got to keep your ear low to the ground. But for new families, I think some of you may have heard me say that we do welcome calls the week before school begins. And these are welcome calls focused to the parent. And we have a script of 6 questions and the teachers ask and they learn information. And I continue to hear parents say, I don't believe they called me to just connect with me. And Zoom has really made that possible. And the second part of that is we had an administrative team. And, we have talked on this webinar before that admissions is everybody's job. It's not just the admission director's job. And that our administrative team made calls to the new families. We divvied up the new names, and the business office, the development director, the marketing person we would divide it evenly, and we would call them after the first 3 or 4 weeks of school, beginning of January, and like mid-April, because I think everybody's school from April 30th on, it's a whirlwind and school's over, right? With all the events and all that. And we would just have, basic questions. How's it going? Are there any questions you have? No big sell or anything, and then back, again in January, where they're kind of midway into the year. And then they might be saying what happens about next year, all these kind of things, asking them what programs they've attended at school. Maybe they're not attending any because 7 o'clock at night doesn't work for them. I mean, you just find things out, we use that data to go back into our programmatic administration of the school and say, what are we hearing here? What can we do better? So that's investing in people on both levels. I think also being able to share with teachers what retention really means, because the bottom line, it pays their salary, but that's not the only thing we tell them, right? But how the relationship that they have with the family, that they're the people who probably have the most data about that child and family, whether it's a financial crisis or a parent just not happy with what's going on, and how important it is to bring that forward and not wait and make sure, dump it in the retention committee. We used to say that, give it to the retention committee if you don't want to deal with it. But if you heard something or you're sensing something, give it to us so we can go do something about it, right? So I'm going to stop for a moment and just see, does anyone have any thoughts about, now is the time, right? We're all getting ready to send out our re-enrollment agreements. Probably January is when everybody does it, and we want them back quickly. And they help determine what's going to happen for our new admission season. So anything anyone is doing, even as small as talking to the faculty about it, or one school I'm working with is keeping attendance of which parents attend events, and they're open about it. The parent signs in the sheet just because they're trying to look for who's not attending, because that obviously gives you an opportunity to reach out to that family and just say, I haven't seen you at the events. I wonder how the year is going. Do you want to stop by and have coffee tomorrow morning, right? So Christine, you just put your video on. I think maybe you want to tell us something, do you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something. Thank you.
So here, what we do, we do a number of different things. We keep an unofficial list of all the things that we hear. So we have a sort of an everything list for our students, and we sort of keep track of any rumors that we're hearing, and if we received a reference request from another school, that goes on that list, so that we have sort of a picture of who is maybe considering
volatile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we can keep track of them that way, and have conversations with parents, make a little bit more of an effort to find out what's going on, and the teachers do that too. They funnel that information to us. We have new parent nights. So, and that for us is part of retention, in getting them into the school, and it's an opportunity for us to find out a little bit more about them. We did our calls.
Yeah, you did great.
Yes, we did a couple of maybe last month, where we contacted all of our new families, checked in with them. We had a list of questions to ask, got some feedback that was good in a lot of ways. And we're planning on doing that again in the new year for a second touch base for our new families. Yeah, so we put some of the
great. Yeah. So you have some intentional programmatic efforts to do this, which is great.
Absolutely.
What school are you with, Christine?
Urban Academy. We're not Montessori. We're independent.
Okay.
K to 12.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure, do you find surprises in the calls too that you can kind of fix?
Yes,
so to speak, or support better?
I mean, there are also things that, we sort of hear from lots of parents that in some cases are beyond our control, but we can certainly commiserate with them. And like, we have a construction going on next door, which wreaks havoc on a regular basis. But, we can say we can let them know that's going to be done next year, hopefully, those kinds of things. It's just an opportunity to really connect with families, and it means that I'm more familiar with who they are in the hallways, and just part of that process.
And you're the head of school, right?
No, I'm the admissions manager.
Oh, admissions. Okay, great. Yeah, well, connecting, and everybody wants to be known, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important. And the more that they're known and their child is known,
absolutely. Yep.
A chance that they're going to stick around because they feel that they're part of who we are, what we do here. Yep.
Yeah, Clint, thank you for sharing that. Clint, I think you shared in the last 1 or 2 weeks about the number one thing for parents choosing independent school is they want their child to be known. And that's a great way to do it, to know the family, right? Because the family is the customer, the child is the consumer, right? Anyone else have any thoughts on that, on what they're doing?
We have
intentionally. Yeah,
we have something called sure. Sorry, I stepped out for a minute, or stepped off, took my earbuds out. We have something we call a positive proactive communications log. It is tedious, and I'm not sure how much buy-in there is, but it is basically intended for faculty members to ensure that they have a touch point with a family every single month. So in a grade level, every single parent would get some sort of positive, hey, an example of I know your kid, I see your kid. They did this
Yeah.
awesome thing this week.
Mhm.
And sometimes people check it off because they reminded a parent that their kid's homework was due.
Yeah.
So I think the
Okay.
intention is good, but the
Yeah.
sometimes the practical application of it and the reality of it is that it maybe doesn't feel authentic if there isn't something authentic to share. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you do run into that, but we do tend to. I remember Chip Wood coming in and doing an exercise with us at Kingsley, and first thing he said to all the teachers, rate the list of students in your classroom. And then he had us analyze whose name were in the first five, who were the next, who was the last one. And no doubt every teacher had a minute trying to remember the last kid's name. And so then he went back and said, just think about that, reflect on that, right? How well do we remember to check in with all the families and check in about all the children, not just the ones that we tend to connect to easier? And I think that's where teachers have their biggest challenge, is that there are some, teachers get assigned these families. It's not, they don't pick and choose who's in their class most times. And some of them aren't a perfect match as far as personality. A lot of factors can be in the way. And those are the ones that teachers have to get supported to work a little bit harder for that family, right?
and especially if you're rotating classes and
Yeah.
every single teacher has a touch point, and if that kid is on
Yeah.
the bottom of every single teacher's list, that family is
Yeah.
not feeling seen.
Exactly. So doing that log, that I think you said is like a log, you get to, see who you might be dropping off, so to speak. I like that. I like systems. So that's a good system. Anybody else? Tiffany, hi, welcome. Anyone else have any thoughts about what we're talking about is intentional programming that we're doing at our schools to connect to families, for many reasons, and one being retention is the subject today, and that, we're all moving into the retention season of admissions. And, can we learn things from each other that could help us just take one more step, right, to connecting?
I think just another philosophy we have is that
Mhm.
every touch point is an opportunity to get a family to fall in love with you again.
Mhm.
And when you approach when we approach our work with that magic and joy, like that makes a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the way families walk into the school, the way that we welcome them can be, we used to do training for the people at the front desk, um, because we wanted them to feel welcome every time they walk into the school and feel like this is my child's school, my family's school, my school. I can get help here when I need it.
Yeah, I think that sense that one of the things that people are buying when they enroll in a private school is the sense that their voice is really going to be powerful. They're really going to be heard, that the schools will be incredibly responsive and warm and friendly. It's a safe place. It's safe for them as parents, it's safe for their kids. This is a place where people really see them and see their child. And so much of what brings parents to a non-public school is that feeling of wanting to, at the very least, feel that there's going to be an incredibly reliable, dependable, predictable, very warm and friendly, supportive culture. If they don't get that, then they get really concerned very, very quickly. So among the things that I've heard us say so far, I'll just list a few of the things that I've traditionally done. One is the idea of calling 15 families a week and ideally into a Zoom conversation, but a personal touch base from me as head of school to them, just to say, how are things going? Is there anything I should know? You know, anything we should do that would help you. People that kind of outreach, and usually instead of just calling them because they think that when you call, their kid is on the way to the hospital, I'll often send them a text saying, "Hi, Cynthia, it's Tim from Newgate. Everything is fine. I just wonder if you have a moment. I just want to catch up and just share some nice news." And I'll almost always get a quick response back saying, yeah, call, or "I'm busy now, but can we talk at 5?" So that's one way I do it. Second is, I've always held, and we'll call it coffee and conversation or friendly Tuesdays, whatever, a time when I've got coffee and tea and pastries and just available for people to come in and chat in a room that's not my office, a comfortable place, indoors, outdoors, whatever. Third is setting up a parent ambassador program. That really helps. Getting a group of people who care about your school, love it, and are willing to be either, you can call them room parents or just parent ombudsmans, people that, if you ever want to talk to another parent, these are a group of parents who've agreed to be touch points for any of you who just want to talk and just be heard, one parent to another. The fourth is, we always had little notes around the Berry School, note to Tim. And it usually was a pre-made little note, and it said, I just want to let you know, and then check, like, I am so proud of this, or I'm concerned about this, or I have a question about that, or I need for you to deal with this. And then inside, it was blank, and they could tell me whatever they wanted to tell me. So those are just a few of the things we did. We held monthly community meetings, which were never lectures. They were always just a circle like we would have in a Montessori classroom where anyone can talk. And it's usually, the meeting is run by kids. And we just talk. But building a sense of this is our school, from my experience, really.
Thanks, Tim. That's great.
I just thought of something else that was interesting.
Okay.
Every other week we have student run performances that are like a variety show.
Oh,
and
nice.
2 grades are featured. So we're pre-K through 8. 2 grades are featured each week. And then after that, we encourage parents to stay for something that's a topic. For a while, it was a book study on the anxious generation. Now it's shifted to like how to support your kids' emotional growth or the adolescent brain, all the things that you can support with them. So, so we offer those, but we don't necessarily get a high level of involvement from parents. And I think that's also an opportunity for us to have people feel like we truly get their kids, because when they attend those events, they
That's right. Yep. So when they come to those events and then you tag another event on, I'm going to expect that's taking a chunk of time out of their day. Yeah. Because I think time is just such a factor for everybody. I wish we could slow down and have more time in everything we do, right? We used to do a parent speaker series and took subjects before that. But I think one of the successful things we did is, because we were like losing people showing up for these events, and of course that depresses all of us when we put so much effort into creating it. But we had a monthly parents association, some schools call it parent council, and we started taking 30 minutes of that for programmatic and 30 minutes for the chairs of the parent association to run the business and get all the stuff done. And they thought it was great because it forced them to get all that like kind of administrative stuff done, sign up sheets, all of that. And then the second half, we started talking on topics. So they knew every month, oh, what's the topic at the parent association? And the biggest success was when I brought teachers in to do it. And we took it off of being a PowerPoint. Sometimes someone had 2 or 3 slides, but for a teacher to come down and talk about independence, or what does self-directed mean, or ideas to do with your child over the holidays. And if we had, sometimes we'd have a early childhood teacher and an upper L teacher together, and they only had to talk for 10 minutes each. because our goal was, let's get the audience talking and get it into Q&A or sharing. And the teachers were really worried about it in the beginning because they don't really like to talk in front of families, but it did a bunch of things. It helped the parents who were there see all of the teachers. Like if you're a toddler teacher, you're meeting Beth in upper L and you're like, oh, wow, that's Beth, you know, and that's the retention going on subconsciously, right? and then just, you know, I just find when parents are in front of teachers, they are really well behaved and they really listen well. And they love to ask a direct question and to get a teacher perspective on it. It's just been fabulous. It's a little hard to get off the ground because the teachers are a little nervous about it, but we've succeeded on it. And we never make it be like they have to come in and do a major presentation. Take one of the topics they know a lot about. Sometimes they bring a handout. And parents walk away feeling like, I got more than a parent association meeting. I got learning from my teacher. And parents are learners too, right? I mean, we've talked, I think, on the presentation that, you know, parents are going through their own developmental stages, and we should never forget that, because whatever age the child is, the parent's in a new era every year, right? You know, a parent of a kindergartner is very different than a parent of a toddler child versus an upper L or a middle schooler, you know, and trying to relate to that.
Yep.
Because parents have needs, and they might not be the first one to say, I need you to help me with this. But if you read any of Ellen Galinsky's work, she's probably the only one I know who does a really nice job on stages of development of parents. And the biggest one I remember is the parent of the kindergarten student whose child is moving into elementary, because now that child's being more separated from them and their friends are becoming more important. And that's a loss for the parents emotionally. But when they learn that this is why we're doing, this is what will happen, this is why we're encouraging your child to be independent, your child wants to be developmentally, then parents are like, oh, I get it. I got to step back a little bit, you know? And no one tells them that. Who tells them that?
That's so right. Yeah, there are other things obviously you can do. For example, many schools will have a database of the kids' birthdays and the parents' anniversaries and their birthdays, and they'll send out something, either an e-message or an e-card, or they'll send out a physical card in the mail to the family, the kid's birthday, or to the kid. You know, kids like getting mail. That's another little way of making impression. A second way of doing it is, instead of the typical yearbook pictures, or in addition to those pictures, create have somebody who's really a gifted photographer go around the school and get pictures of every single kid, not pose, but in a Montessori school, it'd be them and with a friend or them alone doing some kind of really intense work, or in a traditional school of them doing something they're proud of. And it could be the photographer talks to the kids, and this kid says, I'm really into volleyball. Can you get a picture of me volleyball? And somehow or another, you create pictures, then you blow them up. This is an old summer camp trick of the sleepaway camps, where they'll send out a big picture of the kid to the parent without a frame, just as a gift, not as a fundraiser. Now, another thing you can do is you can do the same kind of thing with little pictures, and you can do it in your annual fund. And what we would do, Gate, is we had a thing where, you know, there'd be a picture of the kid, and it would say, the kid's worth $1 million. And they'd open up and we'd say, for you, we're just asking for $1,000 this year. Or, you know, your children are precious, and, you know, we invest in them and so forth. Another thing you could do is do things that make parents get involved, you know, or give parents a real opportunity to be involved in something that is not connected with fundraising. Parents get creeped out by the endless numbers of calls and demands on their money and their time and so forth. But making people feel that this is a school where, if you want to, We really appreciate you, and we're happy to have you get involved with anything from cooking to, talking about your faith or where you grew up or whatever. And yet another,
Yep.
your school has a culinary program, have dinners at the school, ideally, where it's really
Mhm.
fancy. But the kids are the chefs, and the kids are serving it by candlelight. Really a great dinner. All of these are
Mhm.
tricks that are used by some schools to create a feeling of connectedness.
Mhm. What about surveys? I'm seeing more schools doing the kind of net promoter or pulse survey lately, but
You've mentioned that term before, Renee. Can you explain
yeah,
it carefully to people what you mean by that?
well, not that well, but I'll try, based on my experience with a couple schools. So they send one question out. This school is sending them weekly, which I think is a bit much. And it could be a question as much as, do you feel that the safety measures at our school are adequate? And that the way you rate it is you drop the people who it's a 1 to 10, and the 6, 7, and 8 you don't really pay attention to. People who say 9 or 10, that it's really, really good, or 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that you focus on, and then pick a few parents and call and say, wondering why you gave it a number 2. And they're learning stuff that's just pretty interesting. The net promoter survey is the one question that you say, would you recommend such and such school to a friend? And they just say yes or no, and it comes in anonymous. I just see more of that going. I have mixed feelings about it, but I do have a belief, and if you want to strengthen the programming that you're doing, ask the people, right? And so I think the way you do that, like if it was my school, I would kick off the year and ask the parents association if I could speak for 15 minutes. And then at the first meeting, and then I'd say, here's the top 3 goals for our year. And we just did this at a school. One is enrollment. They want to grow their elementary school. So they were loud and clear. We want everybody to move into kindergarten. We want all the kindergartners to move to lower L. This is the reason why. Here's 4 programs that will be on the calendar this year. Please attend. You have to be kind of bold but polite and just say, this is really important to the teachers and to me. We spent all summer creating, and then reminding people throughout the year what those 3 goals are for the school, and give them, some Friday, give them a quick update. Look how we're doing on this one. And then sometimes I would ask for a task force, not a committee, because I have a thing about committees. They go on, and a task force has a beginning and an end. And I would ask at the parent association if 2 or 3 parents could check in with me later if they would be willing to be on a task committee to help problem solve how we might be able to strengthen retention and enrollment, because you want everyone saying, oh, did you hear Renee? They're really trying to get kindergartners to go up to first grade next year. And she gave this whole idea of what they're trying to do, and they want to have 4 class, tell the people, because they're going to talk to each other about it. And then they start conversations. And then if there's a task force, you could start to problem solve a little bit more. They may have ideas that we don't think about, right? And I always put a teacher on the task force with the parents, and I'm usually there, because parents just change when there's a teacher in the room in a really positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're not getting enrollment retention, let's find out why, right? And if you have a task force, those parents, they might say, why don't we all split up the kindergartners and we'll all call them and find out what they're thinking. That's a way better call to a parent than me calling them to say, what are you thinking about enrollment? A parent to parent, and say, well, I'm working on Renee's task force, and the school's trying to strengthen enrollment, and she's really interested to know what people are feeling. I think that honest transparency and purpose goes a long way, because I don't think we always tell people and a lot of times people I find heads of school are afraid to bring the message that we're low in enrollment. I'm like, these are your customers, tell them, It's not necessarily a bad reflection. And, you have to manage the way you announce it, talk about it. But I always put it into some kind of a growth strategy model so that I'm not just look like I'm desperate for enrollment.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Any of you do anything like that or think that might be sensible? Christine?
We do surveys every
Mhm.
fall. We do one for our students, we do one for our staff and faculty, and we do one for our parents.
Oh,
And
good for you.
one of the things that I think is really important is when you ask the question, you then have to respond.
Yes, I was waiting to hope you say that.
Yeah. So if there are issues that come up in any of those areas, you have to be able to really take a look at them and say, what's going on here, because there's more than one person with this concern or with this issue,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and be responsive to that. But we're also super excited every year when we get really great responses as well. Like this year from the students, their first description of the school was fun. Like
Oh, it's
that
great.
just blows me away. You're
Yeah,
talking about high
that's great.
schoolers
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything down to JK, and their first descriptor was fun. So we're doing something right. But
Yeah, that's really great because the school that I said is sending out a question every week. They call the parents who respond one or two the problems, right? And I'm trying to get them to, do like an end of the year, end of the fiscal year, no, academic, end of the calendar year, little update for early January. Just, another opportunity to get in front of the people. And write a letter and say thanks to all of you who've been responding to these questions, and give them a little bit of input of what people said, even if it's a problem. Here's some challenges that we're looking at, and as long as you say our task force made up of a few parents and teachers or the administrative team are looking at this, and we thank you so much for this honesty, because people say Renee told us that people weren't happy about this. That's, she's really listening. She's really open, right?
They need to know that it's not going out into the void, that they're being heard, and that something's
Yeah.
going to happen
Yep.
because of the time that they've taken to respond.
Absolutely. And you want to appreciate them taking the time, even if it's 2 minutes, right?
Even if it's bad.
I know. Well, you know what? We did a big survey. We had a pretty big tool for a couple of years with an outside person, and they would color code it for me, and the red was the problems, the big problems, and you don't get a lot of those. And I'd just say, oh, there's only one there, and Steve would say to me, Renee, that's the first one you should be dealing with. And I'd say, but Steve, there's only one in this whole section, and he'd say, that is your red flag. Because I'm like, well, if there were 10, then I'd get all worried, right?
Well,
Because
and the red flag parents are talking to each other. So you don't want that one red flag that gets ignored and not discussed to become a red flag for, 5 parents the next time.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one little bad thing travels like fire, right? And then someone says, oh, I heard, someone who doesn't even know about it, say, oh, I heard this was going on. Tell me more about that. And you're like, oh my goodness, right?
One of the things that we've started to do is take a look at the fact that because we have a middle school, students are increasingly playing a role in that retention process and the enrollment process. And so we just kicked off a group where we hand selected students to help us create content.
Oh, good for you. Yeah.
As a means of also creating retention for them and then value to them, and then saying back to them, these are things that you can put on your application for high school that distinguish you as a really great candidate for a high school. So just also looking for ways to keep the kids engaged with things that allow them to share. The other day I went into the lunchroom and I asked students what was their favorite thing about the school. And they said, why are you asking? And I said, well, because we have this poster. And I pulled up the other side of what I was writing on. And I said, we made up the list of what the favorite things were for students. And why should we make it up when you're right here?
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, that's awesome.
I'm not sure that this list is accurate to what you think.
Yeah.
are the favorite things about school. So it was really fun to have a conversation with them. And they're like, you made it up. And I was like, well, at one point it came from what students had
Right.
said, but that was probably, 3 years ago. I want to know what's
Yeah.
important to you, what you like. So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think they appreciate that too.
Yeah, when I ran the high school, it was middle school and high school, I had student admission ambassadors, and they did those kind of things, and they would come in and say, you have, I mean, once they came to me and because I was really big on the parent partnership, and one girl came to me privately and said, I don't have parents. I have an aunt who takes care of me. I would so rather you say family partnerships. And I try to work on that, but that was a big problem for her. And she said, it's been bothering me for a year. And because I'm an ambassador now, I think I could say it to you. I'm like, Grace, thank you so much, because one word could turn people off, right? The wrong way. But we did that exact exercise, and they didn't like the list we had of why kids come to our school at all. And they changed the whole thing. And it was just great, I mean, you have great relationships with your teachers. That was like their number one thing. And, we just said small teacher student ratio, right? But they changed it and get their words. And we had them do the tours, and we did do it as part of their community service so that we weren't, pulling them out of academics too much. But they did the tours and then brought them into the admissions office. And kids sell, right? Just like we did parent tours at Kingsley. We started having parents come in. It was hard for my admissions director to let go. But I said, look, these are the parent association leaders. They're going to do a great job, but you'll get them at the end so you can then do your script, right? And some of that you just have to let go. But parent to parent is far more powerful than administrator to parent.
So you just, sorry.
Okay.
Teresa just reminded me of something else that we do here is
Yep.
for we tend to lose a few students every year out of our grade 7 and 8 classes. So in the spring, we do a showcase where our older students are available up on their floor to talk to the younger students. So we bring up the middle school students,
That's great.
and
great.
they can see the different things that they're working on, their projects. They get to have one-on-one conversations with the teachers there, but mostly the students who are actually doing the work can show off and brag a little bit about what they're doing. And it means that they have a little bit more opportunity to really get to know what's actually happening instead of just hearing about courses and those kinds of things.
Exactly. Yeah, because we have a little bit of talking at people when we're saying, "Oh, this is what we do," and they're talking with them. So that's a much more intimate and connecting. I love using students in admissions, but we at Kingsley we only went through 6th grade, so that was a 6th grade honor to be part of the admissions process. And in the high school, it was an elective they could choose, so that worked really well. And we also did student panels. We did them for prospective students in admissions, but also students in the lower elementary getting ready for upper L. And we sometimes brought the prospective students and the current students together. And then the parents sat in the back of the room, and we would say, this isn't a parent panel. You'll have 15 minutes at the end, but this is really for the students. And because the new students, we mixed them with current students, and it was really good because it just made the room bigger also and made more students there. And we did the same thing with parents as part of we got really sophisticated in how we programmed our open houses on the weekend, but I think we're going to talk about open houses next week. But a parent panel, putting parents up there and letting parents ask questions directly to the parents is incredibly valuable. And then they chat afterwards, right? They say, "Oh, I asked you that question. Who's your daughter? Like, how long have you been here? And oh, we love this school," right? And that's the stuff that really works.
I noticed that Matthew Farley, you've unmuted yourself a couple of times. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I thought I noticed that too.
I have not. I didn't know I was unmuting myself, but I will say that I am especially appreciative of a lot of these ideas. The parent panel one is really intriguing. I was actually writing down notes as furiously as I could about the parent panel. We use student panels, our 8th grade admissions ambassadors. It's the most effective part of our recruitment events. That and
Yeah.
having admissions ambassadors lead tours, but the parent panel is
Yeah.
really intriguing for sure.
Yep. Yep.
I wonder, if we could, before we stop for the week, are you finding it useful to attend these things? Are you finding it useful when Clint sends out the summary notes along with the recording and the transcript? Is this good stuff?
I think it's great. My question is like, if we're unable to attend an event, do we also get the notes, or is it only for you to attend?
Yeah.
No, you do. If you're signed up, until you unsubscribe or take yourself out, whatever we do, whenever I don't always get Clint the recordings as quickly as I should, but you always send it out, right, Clint, to everyone on the list.
Yeah, and I know it's on YouTube as well. Just as a reminder for everybody, it's on your YouTube channel for the Montessori Foundation. As I mentioned to you, Tim, one of the big projects we're doing over the break as well is building out a whole community area, and I want to have that as a section too for a lot of the recordings as a resource as well. So, yeah, you can always go to the Montessori Foundation YouTube page as well to you see them all there, so you can hop right in. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jody, for letting us know you're there.
No
I know
worries.
everybody's busy. Yep. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. That's great.
Bye.
Have any ideas of anything that you've heard that you're doing, or you do something similar, or?
I am actually in my second year here. My kids actually went to school at ICSJ school. We're in Chicago. And I have been in school marketing for quite a while now, but I'm back here in my second year. And so we're just relaunching parent ambassadors again. I did a little training for my lower school kids, the really kindergarten through third grade, to be kind of greeters when I bring people through on the tours, but I haven't really engaged the middle school. I like the idea of the student panel or student ambassador in the middle school level too.
Yep. Great. Yep. Thank you.
Good
Christine,
idea.
would you mind? Yep. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Jody, go ahead. Okay. Christine, would you mind sharing what you put in the chat, that you said that you take copious notes on the lead nurturing webinar, and then you brought it to your department?
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
I took copious notes that day because it was something that is particularly interesting to me on that whole lead nurturing. We keep such careful track of our inquiries, and then they, what do we do with them after they haven't applied and they haven't responded and whatnot.
Right.
And having the idea of a process to follow, of a direction that you can go with these, and the different things that you can do at different times during this process was actually really helpful for us. And so we sat down as a group and started thinking about how we could implement some of those things for us. And I actually, before our session, I came up with a really great idea. We have a junior kindergarten application deadline coming up in February, and I thought what we should do is take some really great videos of our JKs doing their wonderful singing and dancing for our
Holidays.
December programs, and that as part of the reminder, so that they can see what's happening.
Exactly.
It really generated a lot of ideas for us, and has been a great impetus for us to change a few things.
Great. That's awesome. I love that you're bringing it to a wider group, right? Who can't all be here. They're invited, of course, but we can't all take an hour off, right?
Yeah.
I know. That's wonderful. I love that. And the notes that Tim and Clint send out are pretty impressive, because it's a real transcript of what was said. And you can share that so that people maybe, I did with somebody at a school in New Jersey, and it generated her with a whole bunch of ideas. The one you did, Clint, when you said, ask teachers the best books, or ask them the top 3 reasons they want to teach here, or ask faculty, students what they love about the school. And she's doing her middle schoolers, they're videoing each other, and it's really kind of funny. And I think when they're up on social media, when it's not the same as TikTok, but it's a little bit more like kids recording each other about their school, and it's just an excitement about it. It's not, as professionally done, but I think it's okay. So we could do some of that, and there again, as Teresa said, I think it was Teresa or maybe you, Christine, that students can put that on their resume that they've been doing some, social media marketing with their school on enrollment admissions. And kids never think about this, right? And you know what, actually, the other thing is, I don't know how many parents actually, in our school, parents thought we had 1 million applications. But, I didn't tell them we don't have 1 million, but I would always say we want more, because we're always looking for the family that's the right match, which is what we're all here for, right? The family that isn't going to leave, and would, the more we can choose from. And also, I would say to parents, the more you know a family and refer them here, the better it is that we get a little more connection to that family, because you know something about them. And we used to have the big problem of people living in the city. So that was one of our secret questions, is how do we find out how long people are going to stay in the city and not leave us, right? But
there we go. We're coming up on the hour. So any last words from anyone? Well, I hope all of you, are getting something out of this. I'm curious, do any of you also use Clint's services? Are you involved with Ames as a marketing software, or did you discover this some other way?
I think my communications team somehow got the information and forwarded it to us here in admissions. So I'm not sure how they found the information. Yeah.
Yep.
We don't subscribe to the software, but I saw this somewhere, I don't remember where now, and thought it would be a really good thing for me to listen in on.
Yep.
Montessori Foundation is a consulting group, and Ames is, a software and marketing agency. And we don't care how you got here. We're happy to have you and happy to do the conversation. I think the bottom line is you could spend the rest of your life trying to figure out why people come to your school. What does it take to get them to engage with it? Because, from their point of view, the fastest way to save $20,000, $25,000 a year that they can spend on something else is to find a way to break up you. So they're always looking for an excuse to put their children elsewhere. And there's always something else that looks better to them, either public free or maybe a faith-based school or something different than you. So we're all in this together. And I think it's good to spend an hour or so a week just sitting and chatting about different topics of recruiting and retaining the right families and building community. But we're glad you're here. Well, I guess that's it. We'll call it a day. And we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Same
We have
time.
one more week before we wish everybody happy holidays, but
That's
one
right.
more week. So follow up on all those outstanding leads and inquiries, right?
All right.
You just motivated me, and I'm going to do that with my next call with somebody who's an admissions director and say, last week you said you had 15 people and no applications. What have you done? You got one more week, push. You never know. You might get one, right?
That's right. Thanks, Renee.